Welcome back to the Who's Yanks. We talk everything Canada soccer and U.S. soccer. Tonight we're going to be talking about the U.S. men's national team's roster release ahead of the December 18th friendly against Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that's going to be played at SeatGeek, or not SeatGeek Stadium, but Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. So home of the LA Galaxy for MLS followers or MLS Stadium followers, and yeah. So in this one, I'm just going to be talking about the newly released names that the USA has called up for their upcoming friendly and the final game of this calendar year for the USMNT. And also stick around too. I got a few announcements to read off, including we got a change in coaching among the US staff and technically with MLS as well as we got something a Matt Turner statement from his after his game in New England, and I think the other one with that is yeah, there might be something else, but just stick around if you're curious to hear about Matt Turner's statement for sure and the U.S. change in coaching. So without further ado, let's go ahead and cut right into this. So there's a friendly final game of the year, USA versus Bosnia in L.A. or Carson technically, but it's in the area. But here are the names that have been released, and given how this looks too, yeah, it's a really, really interesting lineup and a group of name here that I've never heard of. Also, stick around too to see what I project the lineup will be. Of course, there's going to be players out of position because Greg Berhalter likes to play people in certain ways compared to how they play at their club. So, footways is not going to be accurate, but that's honestly the lineup I would play with. So, if you're curious in that, also stick around for that as well, which should be immediately after I go over the names that are listed here. So without further ado, here the goalkeepers have been called up. We got some new names here. We got John Postcamp. Once again, for all these names, apologies in advance if I butcher them or mispronounce them. Then after that, we got Gabriel, or I don't know if he says Gabriel, but it's Gabriel Slonia. And then we got, of course, Matt Turner. And for me, I think Matt Turner is just gonna play this game. But interesting to see the second and third option goalkeepers that are being called into the names here. Um, Never heard of them, so I'm gonna have to do some research on these names too, because I don't know if they're up and coming. Have they been around? So are they gonna? This also goes into the goalkeeper race too. Although Sean Johnson is still gonna be probably before these names too, other than Matt Turner. So speaking of that, that's what I'm gonna talk about him too when I talk about Matt Turner later on in the video. So stick around for that as well. So I'm gonna try and get through this as fast as I can. That way I don't make it too long. But yeah, looks like Matt Turner, given how I played, how I see it, Matt Turner is probably will most likely play and start against Bosnia. Then we move to our defenders, where we have George Bello, Justin Shea. I remember him. Jonathan Gomez. I don't know if if I've heard him before. His name definitely sounds familiar, but I don't know if I've seen him play. Then we've definitely got a new one, Kobe Henry. We got Henry Kessler, we know him. Brooks Lennon, know him. Aaron Long, welcome back, Aaron Long. By the way, Aaron Long and Jordan Morris have returned to the starting lineup after ACL injuries. So, welcome back for both of them. Then we got Kevin Paredes, Brian Reynolds, and Austin Trusty, and Walker Zimmerman. So, Kevin Paredes is another new name on here. But other than that, you do got Walker Zimmerman, you got Aaron Long, you got George Bello, and then I think probably, given how I think, it's going to be either Kessler. Although for the right back position, it's going to be Justin Shea, since he plays at FC Dallas, but I don't know how Greg Barters once again is going to do his lineup. And the footway is what I picked, I picked a 4-3-3 formation, so I don't know how Greg Barter is going to play this, You got interesting names here, a lot of new names that I'm curious to see might make their debut on the 18th, so that's a fascinating thing to look forward to. But given the starters, Walker is going to be in the mix. George Bello will probably be in the mix. Aaron Long will probably be back in the lineup now that he's recovered. And then probably I think Justin Shea is going to actually get a start here. And then we're going to see possibly others come off the bench, but yeah, a lot of forgot to mention that this is going to be a domestic heavy. So if you're not seeing any of the European players here, then that's why, because they've already mentioned that this is going to be more so an MLS or domestic based squad for this friendly. And so yeah, we get to see some new names, hopefully, and just see some interesting plays here. Um, so really going to be excited for that. Let's move to our midfielders now. We got Kellen Acosta, Cole Bassett, John Cardoso, Christian Rodon, and Jackson Yule. I think the three midfielders are going to start. Of course, are going to be Christian Rodon. That's Greg Bolcher's one of his go-to guys right there, so he's going to be in here without a doubt. Jackson Yule, maybe? This is a hard one for me. He could, I don't know, but he really didn't have a good tournament in the Gold Cup. And he looked kind of off, and maybe he'll get to redeem himself. Kellen Acosta will definitely probably be a starter here. Yes, another one of, it seems like in the Gold Cup too, one of Greg Bolger's go-to guys. And maybe Cole Bassett or Johnny Cardoso might sneak in here. So that would be interesting too. So Johnny Cardoso, if I remember correctly, um, I haven't seen him since when the USA played the friendlies in Austria um, due to COVID last year. So I mean, he didn't look too bad either. So I think he's another one. I think it's a Brazilian American. So I mean, I think he actually scored a goal against somebody too, couple either earlier this year too. So I mean, he wouldn't look too bad either. So curious to see what he got too. But for the midfield, it's a little complicated to know who's a definite starter and who's not. But we do know Christian Rodon, maybe Kellen Acosta, possibly Jackson Mule will be the starters. Although Johnny Cardoso, I mean, he looked after given the friendlies that he played earlier this year. I mean, he looked like he's on the rise too. So I'm interested to see what Greg Berhalter does with these names here, and if he's going to play a 4-3-3 formation. Of course, he can always play a 4-4-2, and therefore, if that's the case, you can probably expect either Cole Bassett or Jackson Mule or one of those names to get in there, or Johnny Grosso for that matter to even get in here. Then finally, we go to our forwards. We got Taylor Booth, new name. I haven't heard of him, so if he plays, that'll be interesting. But then we got some familiar names, all kind of familiar names. We got Caden Clark, Cade Cowell, so both the Cades are in here. Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, welcome back, and then Ricardo Pepi and Josh Zardes. For this one, this is even harder to choose between the midfielders, as you know, if you play a 4-3-3, you got three strikers you can choose from. However, if you play a 4-4-2, you narrow that down to two. So for me, honestly, Ricardo Pepi will probably most likely start. I would like to see, however, for my 4-3-3, I would like to see Jesus Ferreira in here. And then one of the Cades. Honestly, this was a hard choice between choosing which Cade would work. Cade Cowell for the San Jose Earthquakes looked really well this past season, but Caden Clark for the New York Red Bulls also looked pretty good. So I don't think you can go wrong with either of the Cades here. But I'm glad to finally see them making their national team or getting called up in here. As you know, I think both of them have Mexican nationality. So they both have. So Mexico could, if USA wasn't really looking to see long term, Mexico could have easily snagged these up, and they still could. I mean, they're still like 16, 17 years old, maybe 18. And, I mean, the USA is really, if they want to lock down both decades, they've got to really, really make sure they get some enough playing time. So, for this game, you need to play both of them, even if one of them comes off the bench. Start one, maybe put another one off the bench. And, of course, you got Zardes, but I mean, that's another one of Greg Berhalter's guys. So, this one is even more interesting because Zardes, I mean, he's looked decent. I mean, he's more of a club player, in my opinion, than a national team player because we've seen him for the Columbus Crew score all kinds of goals. But when it comes to the national team, he's really been sluggish, and that's when he really puts the shots over the bar, and it just becomes terrible. So for this one, for the sake of the national team, I would rather see Zardes come off the bench. And once again, he can substitute for Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, either of these guys. But I mean, you can't go wrong with anyone else besides Zardes. But Taylor Booth is another interesting name for this list. Once again, I have to do research on him to know where his roots are and where he's coming from. So that's going to be really interesting to really look forward into. And hopefully, if he does play, I'll be able to tell you guys about him too. Even if he makes big moves, so let's say he goes to a bigger club name. And maybe he's already in Europe, but I have to do my research, so I can't really give you guys much information about that. But yeah. Other than that, in terms of it being on TV, it's going to be on Fox Sports 1, Univision, and TUDN. So that's where you can go watch those. And reminder again, it is for December 18th against Bosnia and Herzegovina at the Dignity Hill Sports Park in Carson, California at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific or local time. Now, um, here is my foot whiz thing. So you can see I have Matt Turner in net. And then you can see I have George Bello, Walker Zimmerman. Looks like I got Aaron Long and Justin Shea on the back line here. And then, so in terms of who's right and who's wrong, we know Matt Turner's right. We'll probably start. George Bello, Walker Zimmerman, I think them two might be fine. They will start. Aaron Long, I don't know if he might come off the bench, given how he's just recovering off an ACO tear. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't know if Greg will start him immediately, but you can't go wrong. And then we have Justin Shea for the FC Dallas Academy. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's like Justin Shea. I mean, and he is right back, but I don't know. Once again, Greg Bolger could play with another center back in that position. So it's just really interesting to see how he's going to play this lineup with many players. Given how he loves to play players out of their traditional position. So that's going to be interesting to see for the defense. But other than that, I really don't have any other major switcheroos or surprises rather than Justin Shea, I guess, or perhaps Aaron Long coming off the bench. You can guarantee that Matt Turner will be in that, Walker Zimmerman will be there, and then maybe George Bello will be there. So that's what I think. And then we go to our mid. I think you can guarantee that Christian Roldan can be in the lineup. As I said, he's a go-to guy for Greg Bolger. Same with Kellen Acosta. I think he's another go-to guy for Greg Bolger. And then you got, for me, I put Jordan Morris down here. Although, once again, the U.S. has him labeled as a striker, but at the same time, he really plays center mid for the Seattle Sounders. So, I don't. He's definitely a question mark. I don't know, once again, if Jackson Ewell's going to play there. Once again, as I said, he didn't really have a good Gold Cup tournament, but, I mean, it was decent. But if Jordan Morris plays there, and once again, Jordan Morris could even come off the bench, given how he just had an ACO tear. So, it's interesting to see. That position for sure is up in the air. But other than that, I think you can guarantee Christian Roldan, of course. And perhaps you could put Christian Roldan and Jordan Morris next to each other for chemistry if you want. And then Kellen Acosta, you can guarantee him as well. Although, the only thing that's up in the air for that one, for the mid, if you play a 4-3-3, is Jordan Morris. Does he come off the bench? And if he does start, how much time will he get before he's replaced, or who's going to take his place? So, question mark on Jordan Morris, but the other two you can guarantee. Then up top, this is the really, really hardest decision, but for me, as I said earlier, got Jesus for Ricardo Pepi and one of the Cade. And I think it's going to be Cade Cowell for this one, as Cade and Clark look really well, but as I said, you can't go wrong. And I think Cade Cowell just had more of a they both had equal breakout seasons this past MLS season, but Cade Cowell looked like he could be really, really good. But for honestly, you can say that you can make a point for all these top three striker positions could be like not locked down, as you got the other Cade coming off the bench. If the USA plays Jordan Morris as striker, and you got him, you got a few others too. So this will be really, really interesting to do how the USA plays their top three up top. So we just have to keep an eye out for that and see how they do about that. Now, that's my Foot Whiz lineup. Now to the announcements. I think I'm probably going to do the coaching announcements first before I do Matt Turner. Luchi Gonzalez has been hired as the new USMNT assistant coach, and he will be replacing, I think they're just doing an FC Dallas swap here, Nico Estevez. As Nico Estevez will be heading to FC Dallas for next MLS season for them, while the new coach, Luchi Gonzalez, will be taking his position. So we got an FC Dallas swap here, basically, as both coaches or just going to the FC Dallas or coming from the FC Dallas Academy or the club. And Nico Estevez, for me, is this is really interesting. You got FC Dallas is a strong academy. They're producing a lot of players, quality talent down there, and just having it looks like it's a like for like coach swapping position. But yeah, in terms of Nico Estevez getting this position, I mean, I think it's gonna it'll be interesting too because hopefully he can turn FC Dallas around as they really needed help this past MLS season. Pardon here, I'm gonna get some water. Got something in the back throat, but Nico Estevez, FC Dallas really needs some help as they had a poor season this year, and they just need something to get turned around down there. But yeah, sorry about that. But I think this is pretty good for FC Dallas. And I think Nico Estevez can get the spark going for them, really get stuff going, and perhaps that turn the club around and really get them back on track in terms of looking at playoffs. So curious to see how that happens. And in terms of the coach for Luchi Gonzalez, I think this will be really, really interesting as well as we'll see what he'll bring to the table as he's coming from the FC Dallas Academy. You know, he knows what like to bring up young players and work with young players. So I'm curious to see how he does that into the U.S. national team's lineup and roster area. So without that, that's my take on the coach's position. Just a like-for-like switch for FC Dallas. And finally, last but not least, I want to end with Matt Turner's quote that he made the other day. And he said, "It is my dream to play in the Premier League in England. Hopefully that happens one day." And so, for me, just starting, where to start. So, we know Matt Turner had New England Revolution had a rough semifinal Eastern Conference playoff match as New York City FC, they just played really well, and they made all 5 of their penalty kicks, and New England missed one. But Matt Turner could not save a single penalty, unfortunately, for New England. Now, I don't know if you can take this into account, but because New York City's penalties overall were pretty good. So those are good penalty kicks, but I don't know if you can really fault Matt Turner for him losing the penalty shootout. I mean, it's just hopefully he'll take that as a learning lesson, though, and just get better. And we'll see if he'll bounce back or even look to make another club move away from New England next season. So in terms of where he'll go and whether he stays with New England, that's going to be interesting, especially if he's trying to get to the Premier League. He's got a long way to go, but the good thing is he's still got some room. And if he goes to this Premier League, this will be huge and just a huge boost for the USMNT as he'll now be battling with Zach Steffen and just probably, I mean, if he gets playing time rather than just sitting on the bench like Zach Steffen, he could even just be outright just the number 1 keeper for the USMNT. So seeing where he goes and where he's gonna go coming up, it's really interesting because there's a lot on the table for him. So if he does return to New England, hopefully he'll continue to have a breakout season there. But if he does want to make a move to Europe, we'll see where he goes. And so that'll be interesting to see for that. But in terms of getting to the Premier League, I think he still has a long way to go. And yeah, we just gotta keep tabs on him. But other than that, those 2 announcements. So we got the U.S. coaching change with FC Dallas, assistant coach, and then you got Matt Turner with his statement and his goals. Good luck to him on that, and we just gotta keep tabs on him. But other than that, that's the lineup, that's the announcements, and that's the video. If you like this video, make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about it, and don't forget December 18th against Bosnia and Herzegovina in Carson, California. Last game of the year. Let's see how the U.S. does.